Take you to Zimbabwe, where security services are out in full force in anticipation of the much-awaited presidential results expected any day now. The Southern African nation voted in a tightly contested election between the ruling party that has led government since the country gained independence in 1980 and strong contender, Citizens for Coalition Change. Newzroom Afrika's Audrey Chimwanda has been monitoring those developments and joins us live from the capital, Harare. Very good morning to you, Audrey. Of course, a lot of anticipation ahead of the final announcement of the outcome of these results. As the numbers trickle in, what are some of the observations you're seeing?
Good morning to you, Mpo. It's almost down to the wire, as most of the electoral results have actually come in a bulk. They're not trickling in anymore, particularly from the legislators, the members of parliament, where we see that the ZANU-PF party has retained most of those seats, and the final seats that haven't been announced are not likely to make any consequential difference to the results that we've seen so far. They have retained most of their strongholds, that would be in the rural district councils mostly, and some of the urban councils that they've also managed to nab. Unfortunately, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has not really engaged with international media. We have a media center at the Harare International Conference where all the results are supposed to come and we get a view of what is happening. Most of that information has been given to the public broadcasters, the television stations and their radio stations. So that is where we're getting most of the information from. So we really have to credit the public broadcasters for what we know so far. But in the Harare CBD, security has been increased. I'm going to ask my colleague Rutumetsi just to show you some of the security detail that has been stationed in the main CBD road that leads into the Harare Central Business District. This is Samora Machel Avenue, and it has been barricaded as it is very close to the Results Command Center that is situated just across the road from where you can see this billboard. Of course, this is in anticipation of that much-awaited presidential results. We expect the result to come through perhaps by Sunday late evening or early Monday morning, and this is as it is prescribed by the Zimbabwe Electoral Act, that all the results have to come in within 5 days from the last polling day. So we expect that by Monday latest we should know who the new president, or if the old president Mnangagwa will retain his seat. It's a very quiet morning. Peace is still reigning. It's very calm outside of a few pockets of opposition party protests that we've seen, but those seem to have been maintained by the security detail here, Mpo.
Audrey, what we saw yesterday was a bit of an update, a press briefing by ZANU-PF. We heard ZANU-PF spokesperson Chris Mutsvangwa talking about anyone who sees fit to dispute the electoral process or results is free to go to court. We heard him talking about that. And as you talk a bit about the security detail there and also observe what may be the anticipated outcome, let's talk a little bit about some of the standing that ZANU-PF has had, and very, very determined and adamant, really just stamping out authority yesterday as we listened to that press briefing, and of course monitoring what the outcome could possibly be.
Absolutely, Mpo. The ZANU-PF party spokesperson, Mutranga, we actually attended that press briefing, and he pulled no punches. He was very clear that Zimbabwe is a sovereign state. While these observer missions were invited by the Zimbabwean government, they overstepped their boundaries and the duty that they've been given to observe. They started, as far as ZANU-PF is concerned, prescribing what the constitution of Zimbabwe should be, and they did not take kindly to that. They took exception, particularly to this SADC observer mission preliminary report, and they called out the head of that particular mission as fell short of calling him a puppet of the West, really, and being aligned with the opposition party. Also, a bit of a warning to those that will be celebrating the results when they come out to do so in an orderly manner, as they went on to say that the ruling party, the government that is led by the ruling party will not hesitate to stamp any unlawfulness that could happen resulting from these results when they do eventually come out in a couple of days' time, Paul.
Observers have disapproved the validity of the polls, which they say were conducted in a climate of fear. Of course, it would make some sense as to why the governing party has reacted in such a manner. But observers themselves have had a lot to say about these elections.
Their peers, the SADC and the African Union, in an unprecedented move, as we've seen, came out and they were very scathing in their report. We also heard the same from the European Union, from the Commonwealth as well. As you know, Zimbabwe left the Commonwealth from the time of former President Robert Mugabe, and the new administration of Idi Mnangagwa has been trying to reintegrate Zimbabwe back into the Commonwealth. But if we go back to what that particular mission had to say yesterday, also saying that these elections were conducted in a repressive environment. They also cited the arrest of those civil organization members who, by the way, were given bail of $200 yesterday, and they're out back in the streets now, but we expect them to come into court any time now. So those are some of the issues that have been cited by the international community that was invited to come and observe these missions, making it a bit difficult then for Zimbabwe to stop being a pariah state, so to speak, but be able to reintegrate with those international communities so that, issues of the International Monetary Fund and those credit facilities can be reopened back to Zimbabwe to improve its economy.
We also heard ZANU-PF expressing some confidence in regard to the outcome of these elections, saying that they may retain, they may get a 2/3 majority or even exceed expectations and go much far beyond that. As those results trickle in, is there any indication, is there any sense of where ZANU-PF is standing and, of course, what that could mean ahead of election results being announced?
So I mentioned that earlier on when we started speaking, that the results are showing that ZANU-PF is leading when it comes to the members of parliament. They have attained about 140 seats. The Zimbabwe parliament has 210 seats. And
Okay, we appear to have lost my colleague Audrey Chimwanda there, giving us a sense of what is happening on the ground in Zimbabwe ahead of elections being announced. The outcome of elections likely to be heard around Sunday, according to the information that Audrey is getting. Also speaking about some of the remarks that have been made by ZANU-PF. Yesterday, a press briefing was held there, and they were really just setting the record straight, saying that their democratic credentials are well earned and that the imperial hand attempted to send agents to disrupt the elections and that they will not allow that, saying that SADC countries are only member states playing a fiduciary role and not cleared to question the structures of a sovereign state. That's as some of the criticism comes in, observers disapproving the validity of the polls, which they say were conducted in a climate of fear. So it'll be interesting to watch as we continue to get a sense of the results as they trickle in across the various regions. Audrey Chimwanda will give us those details as we continue our rolling coverage of the outcome.